Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon if you are out on the East Coast. This is Deb Schmidt. I want to thank you all for joining me for today's webinar, which is how to deal with difficult people. I work with a lot of companies throughout the country and sometimes outside of this country, helping them to build customer and employee loyalty. And I do a lot of team building training. And one of the questions that frequently comes up when I do my seminars is coworkers will come up to me afterwards and say, well, I've got this coworker that's really difficult to deal with. What do I do? And so that gave me the idea to put together this webinar today and on how to deal with difficult people. This has to do with building employee loyalty, and but everything that we're talking about today can apply in the workplace or outside of the workplace. So if you're dealing with difficult people in the workplace, you certainly can apply these principles. But maybe the difficult people you're dealing with are family members or friends or neighbors or someone outside of the workplace. So all of these principles will apply either way. It's not specifically necessarily geared to the workplace. However, this is where this has stemmed from. There can be difficult people in your workplace. They can be coworkers. They could be customers. They can be vendors. Maybe you're dealing with difficult people in your families. Maybe you're dealing with difficult people in your volunteer relationships when you're on committees or teams. We run into them, let's face it. I'm gathering that the reason everybody who's on the line today with me is because you probably have had to deal with some difficult people somewhere along the way. So my goal today is to provide you with some insights into difficult people and some tips on how to deal with them. And the key really is that we need to learn how to take care of ourselves. So the first thing that I want to talk about today a little bit is the energy drainers. These people who drain our energy, basically sometimes just suck the life right out of our day. You know who I'm talking about. But there's things that drain our own energy. And so I want to talk specifically just about ourselves first. What drains our energy during the course of a work day, during the course of any day? We have a lot of worry. Lots of things going on in our lives. Some of us may be dealing with health issues. Some of us may have fear about financial problems. There are lots of things that drain our energy through the course of the day. Worry about our children, worry about our health, worry about financial situations, worry about job stability. Sometimes some of us are feeling overwhelmed simply because of everything that's going on around us, not only in our personal lives, but also in the news. And you think about what's going on just in the world and what we hear on the news every night, that can cause worry and stress in our lives, and that drains our energy. Some of us are taking on 2 and 3 and 4 jobs in our workplaces because of cutbacks in our company. We're doing far more work than we used to need to do because of companies trimming back their budgets. And then relationships can be energy drainers. There are certain people in our lives that just really sap our energy. This can be friends, it can be coworkers, it can be family members, it can be our spouse, it can be our kids. Lots of different people are tapping into our energy. And one of the biggest energy sappers, though, are negative people. Those people around us that, we're already dealing with all this stuff, and then we've got these negative people that are really just taking away our energy. So before we start talking about dealing with difficult people, and obviously we are talking about that today, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about some tips for dealing with worry and stress, because a lot of us really are coping with a lot of different things each day, and the economy doesn't help, and the negative news that we hear every day or see on the internet doesn't help. So what can we do to take care of ourselves a little bit in dealing with worry and with stress? And it's important to be aware of what you can do to take care of yourself, because the more worry you have, the more stress you have, again, the more it drains your energy and your ability to cope with negative or difficult people. So one of the first things I want to talk about is learning how to take some things off our mind. We've got this nasty economy going on. We have all kinds of fears. All we're hearing bad news every time we turn on a TV or look at our internet. We need to learn how to take care of ourselves. And one of the best things that I can share with you is something that my mom shared with me many, many years ago. There is really no point in worrying about all these things that we cannot control. So in order to stop worrying about things we can't control, we need to learn how to take some things off our mind. Worry when you can change the situation. You can be concerned about things, but to constantly worry about them is not healthy for us because so much of it is out of our control, including these negative people. So if you feel that you're a worrywart, you're worrying a lot about things, or you're worrying a lot about one thing, one way to cope with that and to get a little bit healthier and to get some balance is to find ways to get that worry off your mind, to distract yourself from it. So one of the first things to do, if there's something that's bothering you or worrying you or concerning you, write it down. Write it down on paper, because when you let unhealthy thoughts roam around in your mind, sometimes they get out of hand. They spiral into unnecessary worry. They become bigger than life. They get worse. So if there's really something concerning you, whether it is a negative person or any of these other issues, write them down, because the very act of writing them down on a piece of paper will help to get them off your mind, and that allows you to step back and deal with these issues a little bit more realistically, because they're not just swirling around in your brain, magnifying themselves. And I don't know about you, but I've certainly had this happen where I begin to obsess about one problem and it starts to become larger than life. Also, do more things for you. Get active. My husband scolded me a while back because I was really having some concerns about my business. And he said to me, Deb, yeah, things have slowed down a little bit, he said, but if you're sitting in your office all the time and staring at your computer and obsessing about your concerns instead of taking care of yourself, it's only going to make it seem worse. And he said, I know after living with you for all these years that when you feel your best is when you are outside doing something active. And he is absolutely right. So now I make a point every single day, regardless of the weather. I get outside every single day and I walk a couple of miles, or I get out and I ride my bike just to feel the sunshine, to get some fresh air, to be doing some exercise. And it really does help my ability to cope with things around me. It's really made me feel better. Regular exercise, we hear, it gets preached at us all the time, truly does make a difference, and especially if you can do it outside, and it doesn't have to be major exercise. I just go out and walk. Some days I walk for 15 minutes, some days I walk for an hour and a half, depending on my time schedule, depending on what's going on right at that moment. The busier your life is and the more stressed you are, the more important it is for you to carve out time to do things for yourself. Exercise, read a good book, take care of yourself. This is what's critical. Always make sure that you have something to look forward to. That might be a little weekend vacation. It may be an outing with friends. Maybe you're having a few friends over to your house, although that can add stress if you're the host or hostess. But make sure that you always have something to look forward to, because when you have something fun to look forward to that's coming up, it boosts your energy and your confidence. And when you feel good about yourself and about what's going on in your life, you have more confidence in dealing with problems such as negative or difficult people. So try to make sure that you always have something fun planned. It can be just going to a movie with a friend, but make sure you have something that you can look forward to, always out there, a little bit, something coming down the road that's fun to do. It might be going to a friend's wedding. It can be anything, but make sure that you have something planned that's fun, that you enjoy to do with people that you enjoy being with. Always have some plan out there so that you always have something to look forward to. This will increase your self-confidence, and it does help you to keep things in perspective. You can become really close-minded when you begin to focus too much on problems that are uncontrollable or unsolvable. Always remind yourself, too, that this too shall pass. Okay, because even when you're dealing with somebody, let's say in the workplace, who's very negative, and you may be stuck with them for a while, and they're around, eventually these things do improve. They do go away. So don't get stuck in what the problems are right now. things change. Things change all the time, and just because it feels miserable right now doesn't mean it's going to stay miserable. And I'll give you some tools for equipping yourself to cope with it while it is miserable. Besides exercise, there's a lot of other activities that can rejuvenate. Read positive books, positive articles. One of the things we do in our family is we have what we call our motivational sports movie collection. And whenever any of us are feeling down or we just need an uplift, we throw in one of our motivational sports movies. One of my favorites is Miracle, which is a great movie based on a true story about the Olympics, I think 1980. Wonderful, uplifting story. Other motivational movies, Remember the Titans, Rudy, Hoosiers. There are a lot of wonderful, uplifting movies out there. Make sure you have a collection of those in your house. And we call these our motivational sports movies, but they do lift you up and they make you feel better. So find a movie that makes you laugh or makes you feel inspired and watch it once in a while, or pick up books that do that. I just recently went and got a bunch of books from the library that are guaranteed to be funny. And I thought, I just need some lighter reading material right now because everything around me sometimes is so heavy, especially in the news. So don't fill your head with more negativity by going to negative movies, reading negative books, listening to radio stations that are always focusing on cynicism or negativity. You need to fill your mind with other positive input to get you through the course of a day. Use positive affirmations daily. And I don't mean just look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm wonderful. But you can do that too if you want to. But focus on all that's good in your life. Do you have your health? Do you have a family that loves you? Are you living in a home or an apartment that you can afford? Do you have a job? Because if you have any or all of those things, you already have a lot going for you that a lot of people don't have right now. So always try to focus on what is going well in your life. What's positive in your life? Focus on an attitude of gratitude. What do you have instead of what you don't have? And remind yourself of these things. Give yourself some positive affirmations. It sounds a little bit corny, but believe me, this stuff does help. And the more that you learn to take care of yourself, the more equipped you will be to deal with difficult people and some of these other worries and stresses that surround us. So focus on taking care of yourself because you'll find that you'll have the energy, the confidence, the self-esteem, and you won't let other people impact the way you feel. Don't get mired down in worrying about all these other things. All right, so let's get talking about these difficult people. There are all kinds of difficult people. There are the know-it-alls, there's complainers, there are pessimists, there are bullies. So I'm going to try to deal with a lot of these types of individuals for you today and hopefully, again, equip you with some skills and some tools and ideas for how you can deal with these people and not let them get to you. So let's start with the know-it-all. I don't know about you, but I've worked with know-it-alls. The know-it-all, there are two different kinds of know-it-alls. There is the know-it-all, and now these people usually do know a lot. They tend to be very productive in the workplace. They tend to be accurate most of the time, and they can be very productive in general. They do their homework, they do research, they check things out, and they're very knowledgeable. But oftentimes, they can come across as condescending to other people. Though because they are very knowledgeable and they pride themselves on doing their homework, it's sometimes hard to challenge them. So how do you deal with somebody who's a know-it-all? How do you communicate with these people? Well, if they truly are a know-it-all, they probably are pretty bright people. And because they are productive and often accurate, and they often do possess a lot of good knowledge, one of the things that we need to be careful about with know-it-alls is not contradicting them in front of other people, because they will take extreme exception to that because they pride themselves on having done their research, having done their homework. So you may know somebody like this. Now, know-it-alls also are very difficult to work with because they believe they are always right. And a lot of times they are. That's the scary part. They are often accurate. So if they are sharing information or taking exception to something you have said, listen very carefully. Make sure that you have done your homework if you are going to challenge them on something that they have shared with you. Make sure that if you plan to get into a discussion with somebody who you have decided is a know-it-all, that you have taken the time to do your homework so that you are well prepared. When you speak your opinion, you need to speak with confidence. You can question them firmly, but don't waffle. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't waffle with them. Stand firm, but please don't contradict them, especially in front of other people, because if you do, it's going to make matters much worse. They will challenge you fiercely if you do that. So if you do not agree with what they are saying to you, then confidently share what you think the truth is or what the correct information is, and stand firm on your ground. But do it privately, not in front of other people. And acknowledge, boy, I can see your side of the situation. It sounds like you've done a lot of research on this topic. Here are some other insights you may want to consider. So again, when you're dealing with somebody who believes they're a know-it-all and acts like a know-it-all in the workplace, and they often are accurate and they often do know a lot, these people, if you are going to challenge them on something, make sure you've done your homework, listen carefully to their point of view, and then when you do speak with them in confidence and privately, not in front of a group of people. Because if you try to embarrass them or you contradict them in front of other people, they are going to resent you, and you will begin to pay for that more dearly later on. Now, there's another type of know-it-all in the workplace, and these people bug me even more. These are the think they know it all individuals. These people are tougher to deal with because they act like experts when they aren't. They don't know it all. They haven't done their research. They're not as bright and accurate as the people who are the know-it-alls, but they think they know it all. What these people generally have is they know a little about a lot of different topics. And so what you need to keep in mind with people who think they know it all but are often wrong, okay, what they really want is they want to be viewed as important and valued. They often don't know that they aren't experts. They really believe that what they're saying is fact, okay? So to contradict them or humiliate or embarrass them is not the goal, okay? We don't want to humiliate or embarrass people who think they're know-it-alls, but if we really know that our information is correct and theirs is wrong, we don't want to put them on the spot or embarrass them, but we want to offer, have you considered this alternative? Okay, so they want to be viewed as valued and important, so we need to listen to them. We want to pay attention. We want to be interested in what they're saying, and when they're done sharing their opinion, we want to state the facts but offer an alternative version to help them save face. So one of the ways that you can communicate this is you can say, that's very interesting. I'm seeing your point of view, but have you considered this alternative? Or you may say to them, there may be another way of looking at this. So we need to be a little bit careful with how we present this information, but also please stay confident when you are expressing your opinions. Because if they see that you are waffling or a little wishy-washy, know-it-alls and think they know-it-alls will take advantage of that. So state the facts, offer an alternative version that gives them a way out so they can still feel smart and important. And that's where people will respect you. The goal is not to humiliate, embarrass, catch people doing things wrong. The goal is to maintain our self-esteem, our self-respect, our credibility, but still stand firm when we know that somebody is sharing information that's not correct and not just going along with them because they're going to take exception to that. Now, another issue that creates a lot of difficult situations in the workplace, of course, is gossip. And we need to learn how to avoid the gossip train trap. As you know, this happens everywhere, in the workplace, in our community, with fellow parents of our kids in school, at our churches or synagogues or temples, our volunteer organizations. My goodness, gossip runs rampant. And the people who gossip are most commonly the people who are the most insecure. Gossip is often the result of insecurity. The more insecure someone is, the more likely it is that they are going to talk about other people. because what they are trying to do is build themselves up in the eyes of other people. They're trying to look or sound important. They want to feel like they're in with the in crowd, or they know something that other people don't know, because that makes them feel like they are viewed as more important to other people. The danger for us is when we get trapped on the gossip train. And believe me, I have gotten trapped on this train, because no matter what I preach today, I can tell you, and you know it to be true, sometimes gossip can be fun. And we all know that. It's fun to share stories about other people. But the problem occurs is when we become caught up in that gossip train. Because if you become known as a gossip, or you get hooked into it frequently, your credibility, both personal and professional credibility, will plummet. It will go down. The other thing that occurs if you start to gossip, or you're a person who gets hooked on gossip, is that people will no longer trust you. They're not going to want to share anything that's important to them if they think that you are going to turn around and share it with somebody else. So gossip erodes trust very, very quickly. So here are some things you can do to help keep yourself off the gossip train. First of all, if someone approaches you and they are about to share some juicy gossip with you about another person, the first thing you want to do is quickly praise the person with whom they are about to share gossip. So if they come up and say, "Oh, did you hear about Ted?" What you might want to respond is say, "Oh yeah, Ted is such a great guy. I have such great respect for him. He's really nice." You see, that pretty much is going to shut them down right there, because they're going to think twice about sharing anything negative about Ted, because if they think you like this person and you respect this person and you think that person is nice, they're going to be far less likely to want to say anything negative about that. So you often can shut it down right away. So if somebody comes up and says, "Did you hear about so-and-so?" you can counter and say, "Oh, yeah, he's a great guy. Yep, I really like and respect him." Generally, they're not going to go on with saying anything negative, because it's going to make them look so small if they do that. Also, another thing that you can do is be alert for places where gossip spreads. Try to avoid those places, or be very on high alert when you're in those places. Cafeterias, lunchrooms, break rooms, restrooms. And you may have to edit some people out of your life a little bit. There are people that I've worked with in the past that were notorious gossipers. And when I saw them coming, I would greet them. I'd say, "Hey, good morning, how you doing?" And then I would quickly go find something else to do. I would make sure that I was busy with something else. And it was because of my weakness. I knew that with these certain individuals, I could get sucked into gossip very easily. They made it fun. They often had a lot of gossip, and I would, no matter how high alert I was, I'd still get drawn in. So try to, put a little bit of space between yourself and the people who are known gossipers. Keep busy if they approach you. It doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. It doesn't mean you can't be courteous and nice and polite, but you may not want to spend a lot of time with them, especially in areas where it's easy to gossip, like a lunchroom or a break room. When you are approached by a gossiper, sometimes you can stop it by starting the conversation first. So if somebody comes up to you and you're dealing with somebody who gossips a lot, you can focus on topics that don't involve a discussion of other people. You can greet them and say, "Oh, how is the project that you're working on coming along?" Or, you can focus it on something that's not people related, to keep them from talking about any other people. Another technique that you can use if you're dealing with somebody who gossips a lot is you can tell them that you are trying to stop gossiping. You can actually say to that person, "I need your help. I'm really trying hard to stop gossiping, so could you help me out and make sure," and listen to what I'm saying, I'm using I language here, "make sure that if I start to talk about another person, that you will call me on it." So you're not saying to that person, "I want you to stop gossiping." What you're saying to them is that I am trying to stop gossiping. Could you help me out with it? If you hear me starting to talk about somebody, would you please call me on my behavior, because I don't want to gossip anymore. If you use I language, it is not threatening to them. It doesn't sound like you are accusing them of gossip, and they're less likely to get defensive. but the underlying message to them is, I don't want to hear your gossip either. Another technique for avoiding the gossip train is if someone shares gossip with you about another person, you can stop that pretty quick, okay? So if you're talking with somebody and they start gossiping and they're just not going to stop, you can say, oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to know more about that. Let's go ask that person so we can find out more about him or her directly. Now, watch them start making excuses about why you can't do that or why you shouldn't talk to the other person, or they'll just move away from you because they realize they probably don't have all the truth, they probably don't have all the facts, and they don't want you going up and asking that person directly about what they're being gossiped about. So that too can stop it very quickly. If they say, yeah, Sandy, did you hear about what Sandy's doing? She did this, that, and the other thing. I would say to them, oh, boy, that's interesting. Let's go over and talk to Sandy. I'd like to ask her directly about what's going on. Wow, that'll shut them down pretty quickly. Lastly, when it comes to gossip, if you don't know the other person very well, the person that they're gossiping about, okay, and somebody starts to gossip, you could say, oh, what? Well, I don't really know that person very well, and I don't really care that much about what he or she is doing with his or her life. So I've got other things on my mind right now. So you can find ways to excuse yourself from gossip. One of the ways I like to use best is using I language, saying, I'm trying to stop being a gossip. Can you help me? And please point it out. If I begin to talk about anybody, would you please stop me? That usually stops the other person, and it's not threatening to them because they recognize that you're talking about yourself, but it also helps them to stop from wanting to talk to you about gossip. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about office bullies. 61% of employees have suffered from the effects of office bullies. This is a pretty common occurrence in the workplace, but not just in the workplace. At the office for sure, in volunteer organizations, sometimes we have neighbors who are bullies, sometimes family members who are bullies. Bullying comes in a lot of different forms. Bullies can do a lot of damage because what they do is they keep you in a state of kind of psychological emergency. So if you add anger, that you feel towards the bully, or your own frustration from putting up with their behavior, it really doesn't create a very healthy situation for you. Bullying can come across in a lot of different ways, and it can cause a lot of problems for people. People have experienced anxiety, depression, and even much more major health issues just due to the stress of dealing with bullies. I was doing a seminar at one company, and an employee asked if she could visit with me after I was done, and she came up and said that she had missed several days of work because of a coworker that bullies her. Let's talk about 8 common bullying tactics. Here are 8 of them. It's not all about yelling at a person or getting right in somebody's face. As I mentioned a moment ago, bullying comes in a lot of different forms. One way that people bully other people is by talking about them behind their back. So that ties into gossip. Gossip really is a form of bullying. It's cruel, and it takes away the power of the person about whom they are gossiping. It puts that person, the person who's the subject of the gossip, it puts them at an unfair disadvantage because that person can't defend themselves. They cannot speak out for themselves. They can't explain. They can't try to resolve the problem because they don't even know that people are talking about it behind their backs. And that is a form of bullying. Flaunting authorities or status is another form of bullying. Sometimes bosses will do this in the workplace. Sometimes coworkers will do this. Sometimes family members and friends can do this. Flaunting status or authority, trying to laud your knowledge or your authority over other people, is a form of bullying. Another form of bullying is belittling someone's opinion to other people. So let's say somebody has shared an opinion with you. If you roll your eyes or you turn around and say to somebody else, boy, what a dumb idea, even if they didn't hear that, okay, I can't believe they even thought of that. That's a form of bullying. When you criticize other people's opinions to other people, that is a form of bullying. It is a bullying tactic. And even body language, eye rolling, sideways glances at a coworker during a meeting when somebody has said something that you think is foolish or doesn't make sense or whatever it is or you disagree with, that is a form of bullying. You're belittling that other person. Another form of bullying is choosing not to respond to calls or emails. This is very common in the workplace where people just say, well, I'm not going to bother with that person. Um, and what that does is it sets the other person in a real uneasy state because they don't understand why that person's not getting back to them. That's disrespectful. It's not professional. And so when people choose not to respond to our calls or emails, that is another bullying tactic. It's basically trying to put you at the disadvantage in the workplace, especially if you're relying on them for some information or a response that you need in order to do your job. Another form of bullying is giving other people the silent treatment. And frankly, to me, this is one of the cruelest forms of bullying because it makes people so uncomfortable. It makes people feel so awkward. And really, it's just mean. It's actually just mean. It makes people so uncomfortable. They don't understand. They don't know what's going on. They know the person's angry or upset with them or just being mean to them. And it is so unprofessional and it is so irresponsible and it is like acting like an adolescent. And the silent treatment is just so unprofessional. Of course, insults, yelling, shouting at other people are a very obvious form of bullying, and sadly, this does take place in workplaces. Not professional, not acceptable at any time by any member of any team in any department, no matter what level they're at. It is not professional, acceptable workplace behavior. And finally, another bullying technique that I have seen commonly in the workplace is staring or giving dirty looks at another people or negative eye contact. You know what I'm talking about. You've all seen it. Glaring at somebody or just giving somebody what a term for it used today is the stink eye. Just giving somebody that kind of dirty look or staring at them. Even if they're staring at the back of our head, it can make us very uncomfortable. And then the last tactic that I want to talk about is the use of condescending or demeaning language when talking to another person, acting like you are above that other person. So these 8 common bullying tactics are basically talking about other people behind their backs, flaunting status or authority, belittling someone's opinion to other people, choosing not to respond to communications, giving other people the silent treatment, insults, yelling, shouting, staring, dirty looks, negative eye contact, or condescending and demeaning language. Basically, when somebody is being a bully, they are purposely trying to make someone else uncomfortable, or they are purposely trying to put somebody else down. These are all forms of being a bully. So what do we do about this? How do we stop it? How do we combat bullying? First of all, the most important thing to keep in mind is you need to stop being silent about it. You need to speak up. Don't give away your personal power. Do not allow a bully to bully you. Just stop being silent about it. Warn that person that his or her behavior is unacceptable. Now, that can be a little bit scary, but you do need to warn them. You need to tell them this is not acceptable. And so one thing that I say to people is, I'd like to be able to work with you on this project or give you the information you need or provide you with what you need, but I cannot communicate with you unless you are able to communicate with me in a professional manner. So why don't you come back when you can talk about it with me in a professional manner? So you can warn them. Warn the bully that his or her behavior is unacceptable. Don't give away your personal power. Stop listening to their lies or their verbal assaults. Walk away. If somebody is saying something to you that is inappropriate or unpleasant or cruel, you can simply walk away. Even if it's the boss, you can shake your head, smile to yourself, and walk away. I will tell you what, that is very powerful. In my negotiating seminars, I teach this this phrase, silence is power. And silence can be power when you are dealing with a bully. You can just look at them, smile, not say a word, and walk away because they don't know what to do with that. So you're not giving away your personal power. You're not getting wishy-washy. You're not shrinking under their stares or their comments or whatever it may be. Try not to let them get to you. Don't listen to their lies and verbal assaults. If you are dealing with this maybe at work, then talk with somebody in the HR department. If this does not help, if the bully happens to be your boss, and it can sometimes get a little bit more difficult for an HR professional to help you because sometimes other people on the team may be afraid to speak out against their manager. So if you're not getting the support you need, HR professionals, by the way, are well trained in how to deal with bullies because it is becoming a big issue in workplaces. But let's say you're not getting the support you need from HR, then please contact an outside counselor. Talk with a counselor. Get somebody objective that you can talk to about this, not just a family member, somebody who's got some training and who can be objective if it's really getting bad. If somebody is really getting to you and create a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress for you, then you do need to talk to somebody. Because especially if you can talk to somebody outside of the workplace or a very solid HR professional, it will help you to get some fresh perspective on the situation. If you can't afford to go to an outside counselor or you don't have those resources available, then try to talk to somebody who can be objective, not a family member or a close friend, but somebody who you know and respect, maybe a colleague in another workplace who can be objective and say, here's what I'm dealing with at work or at school or at home or wherever, and I'd love to bounce this off of you so that you can help me to get some perspective on this. Talk to other people, preferably outside of the workplace if it's really getting bad for you and creating a lot of stress. This is really critical, the next step. Document each and every incident along with dates, times, locations, and even potential witnesses. If somebody has observed the bullying taking place, jot down who saw it, who observed it. Keep track of this, document it. If you receive a memo or an email or a reply to an email that you sent to somebody and that person has bullied you in that message, and we all know what the tones of those messages are, forward anything the bully sends you along with your response to your boss or your boss's boss. Email makes a great paper trail, and bully busting is really most effective when workers on a team band together to confront the offending person. Document each and every incident. Record dates, times, and then forward everything, including your responses, especially with email, to your boss or even your boss's boss. So how do you combat this bullying? We're going to talk more about this, but first of all, keep in mind you need to stop being silent about it. Speak up. Warn the bully that his or her behavior is unacceptable. Simply say, that's enough. When what you are saying to me right now is simply unacceptable, and I choose not to listen to this. I will listen to you when you can present information to me in a way that is appropriate and professional. Do not give away your personal power. Stop listening to their lies. Stop listening to their verbal assaults. Document every incident. Keep a paper trail. Keep an email trail. It will create a good source of evidence for you later on if the issue doesn't get resolved. Forward anything that bully sends to you to your boss and human resources. Be sure to include dates and times and witnesses if somebody else has observed that. Now, sometimes a form of bullying is people who over-control, micromanage, or display open contempt for other people. Again, first of all, what you need to do is confront the person who's doing this. You will be amazed at how effective that can be because most bullies lack their own boundaries regarding their behavior. They don't have good boundaries. Another person really cannot bully you if you don't allow yourself to be bullied. So if you do want to confront the person, try to conduct the confrontation in neutral territory, such as outside of the office. Take the person to lunch or try to do it in neutral territory. Try to do it when you can meet with them privately and simply say to them, enough, enough. I am not going to tolerate this from you anymore. I'm telling you, a lot of times this stops the problem dead in its tracks, because bullies, the reason they get enjoyment out of bullying other people or micromanaging or over-controlling or displaying contempt is because they love to watch the reaction of the other person. So if you say, I'm not going to react anymore, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore, that oftentimes will put a pretty good close on it. When you are discussing this issue with that other person, please restrict your discussion to their specific behaviors. Don't try to analyze why that other person behaves in negative ways. Simply address specific behaviors that you would like to be changed. The specific behavioral change you want. What do you want? For example, oops, I'm sorry, I went back. For example, you can say to that person, you embarrass me when you publicly humiliate me in a meeting, but you also embarrass yourself. Isn't that a great line? I love that. I actually used that on my boss one time. You embarrass me when you publicly humiliate me in a meeting. Now, I said this to him privately, but you also embarrass yourself. So what you're doing for this person is you're creating awareness, and you can say to them, so in the future, if you have something that you want to discuss with me that may involve humiliating me, please do so privately, not in front of other people, so that we can openly discuss it. So you want to identify the behaviors that are bothering you. So, and then you want to specify the behavioral change you want to see occur. So in the future, if you have something you want to discuss with me that may humiliate me or embarrass me, please do it privately, not in front of other people, so that we have an opportunity to talk about it. You can also help create awareness for the consequences of the bully's behavior on themselves. You can tell them, basically, when you embarrass me, you're also embarrassing yourself because you're demonstrating your own weakness in front of the team. So you can really help them to become aware of how their behavior is being perceived by other people. Don't say this to a bully. Well, other people have said this, or other people are talking about this, or other people think this. Just simply say to them, when you do this, this is how it appears to other people, or this is how it appears to me. Also, recruit allies. Standing up for yourself can stop a bully by earning his or her respect, but it can also cost you something. So if it's in the workplace and it's your boss, it may cost you your job. So you need to recruit allies. You need to check with your coworkers or other people around you who have been bullied by this person, whether it's in the workplace or not. Find out if they are experiencing some of the same behaviors you've experienced. And if so, you can recruit these allies by saying, let's all stand up together to this person. Now, I don't mean a witch hunt. I don't mean you all confront this person at one time. But if everybody stands up to this person and you're working together and you're working in a company where you have a boss who is a bully, and you all begin to stand up to that boss a little bit, you can see that changes. And again, human resources professionals can really help out in this respect, especially in larger organizations. In smaller organizations, sometimes you may have less choice available to you. So sometimes if the situation isn't going to change, sometimes you may need to leave the department. Sometimes you may need to leave the company. If you see that you're not getting any support internally, or the situation just isn't going to change, or you're not going to get some allies, sometimes you just need to do the right thing to take care of yourself. But if you do leave a company or you leave a department because of this situation, please be honest during the exit interview. It's important to try to address this issue head on. I'm telling you, you will be surprised at how effective it can be when you actually stand up to bullies, because they get their joy out of getting a reaction from other people. And if you say, enough, I'm done dealing with this and I am not going to listen to you anymore, you've taken away their fun. Now they need to go find somebody else to pick on, and trust me, they will. So, dealing with people who can micromanage, over-control, confront, or be bullies, you need to confront, restrict the discussion to specific behaviors. Don't try to analyze them. Just let them know what behaviors are impacting you and what behavioral change you'd like to see occur. So let's focus a little bit more on the workplace. Here's causes of negativity in the workplace. These are the things that start gossip chains. These are the things that can sometimes perpetuate bullying, perpetuate contempt, perpetuate inappropriate language. Oftentimes, what starts this stuff is poorly communicated expectations or changes or policies. If things are not communicated clearly, it leaves a lot of assumptions up for grabs. And that can create gossip, and that can create mistrust. But please don't leave it all up to your boss. Don't put all of the responsibility on your boss or on your coworkers to communicate expectations. You need to take responsibility for finding out what those expectations are or what changes or policy changes have occurred. If you're not sure, rather than tapping into the gossip train, go back to your boss or to the source of the change and say to that person, I want to make sure that I am very clear on what your priorities right now, given these changes or given this economy or what's going on here at work. So let's review real quick so that I can be sure I'm on track. What are your primary expectations for me? Are there any changes or policy changes that I need to be aware of? Please take responsibility for that. A lot of times people in the workplace get hung up on blaming their coworkers or their bosses saying, well, I didn't know about this. Nobody tells me anything. Well, you can go ask. You can go and ask your boss and find out. A lot of negativity occurs in the workplace because things have been poorly communicated. It is a top-down initiative. It is important that clear communication comes from the top down, but this doesn't always happen. So also we need to take ownership and go find out what we need to know so that we aren't just relying on gossip or hearsay. Also, excessive workloads can create a lot of negativity in the workplace. And of course, they are getting more excessive, aren't they, right now? Because of the economy and because of changes and mergers and acquisitions and cutbacks. Another thing that causes negativity in the workplace is weak or inconsistent leadership abilities of managers. It is often said that employees don't quit companies, they quit managers. But sometimes managers are set up to fail. They may be an exceptional employee, they do a great job, and their company rewards them by promoting them into a management position. But oftentimes the problems occur when they're promoted into a leadership or management position, but they don't receive leadership and management training that they need in order to be effective in that position. So that can create a lot of negativity and a lot of gossip if there's a manager who has weak leadership skills. Anxiety about job security and health benefits is huge. And we're going to see more and more negativity right now in workplaces than ever before because these are huge issues. And another thing to keep in mind sometimes is a negative, pessimistic person is sometimes that way because of what's going on around them. But it can also be because of their own past failures. Negative, pessimistic person, maybe they haven't done so well. Something's going wrong in their life. And I have a little quote in your handout there. It says, usually where there is negativity, there is pain. Sometimes just showing compassion towards a negative, pessimistic person can help you get you through to what's really going on with them. Sometimes they may just have something really painful going on in their life, and that is coming across as negativity in the workplace. It can be difficult, but chances are if it's just in a person's nature to be negative, then you need to learn how to take care of yourself. Sometimes you can help them turn things around through a little compassion. Their past failures can also cause insecurity and manifest itself as a negative attitude. So we need to be aware of some of the things that cause negativity in the workplace, because the more we have an awareness of this and how we can take care of ourselves by taking ownership, finding out what's changing in the workplace, this can help us to deal with it. So we want to talk about how to take care of ourselves. And the way that we learn how to take care of ourselves in the workplace especially, well, with anybody, is trust in your own opinions. Really trust your own opinions. You need to realize that no opinion is total fact. So if you don't agree with the other person, trust your own opinion. You may want to get other people's opinions, but remember that your happiness is valuable to you, and no one has the right to take that away from you. It only happens when you allow it. So stand firm on your opinion. If you think something you're absolutely positive about something, and another person is seeing it from a negative point of view, stick to your positive opinion. Listen to other people's opinions, but trust in your own judgment if you don't agree. Because in every situation, there is always two sides of the issue. And sometimes it's a positive and a negative side, and they're dependent on the person who's viewing that situation. Be kind to negative people, but please don't be an enabler or an ego feeder. Don't feed the situation. Negative people come to other people to help them, feed them, to make themselves feel better. So you can be kind to them, but don't go overboard. Just say, you've got a lot of talents and skills. You're a great person. Believe in yourself. Give them a pat on the back and a smile and walk away. Don't get into feeding their ego and giving them more and more reasons to come back and take your energy. Counter negative people with positive. In reality, no situation is all good or all bad, but people who tend to view the positive side are known as optimistic people, and people who view the negative side are known as pessimistic. We need to learn how to communicate with these people, whether they are friends, family, coworkers. It can often be difficult and exhausting or even hinder your own happiness, but we can get through it, and we need to learn how to take care of ourselves. So if you know a pessimistic person who is always pointing out the bad in situations, you can help to combat that attitude by pointing out what's good in the situation, or asking them to identify what they see is good in the situation. It's helpful to a pessimistic person to show them the positive side of things, help them to see that. And you can say, yeah, I can see your point of view, but did you ever consider this? And then show them the positive side. Say, maybe you're not looking at it from a positive point of view. Watch out for negative jealousy. Jealous negativity is caused by people who are jealous of you or envious. They might be envious because of your social economic status. They might be envious of your job or your job title. They might be envious of the fact that the boss likes you better than they like them. Or sometimes people might envy you because you always seem happy. People that are negative tend to resent people who aren't. So I want you to think about that. It seems to be almost a subconscious goal of negative, pessimistic people to try to make positive, happy people around them become as negative and miserable as they are. So instead of trying to fix their cause of negativity or jealousy, they're going to try to change your happiness. So what do? Well, again, if you're dealing with someone who's jealous of you or has jealous negativity, I would recommend avoiding them if you can, because they believe you're part of their problem, even if you're probably not. You're actually not their problem. Sometimes it's better just to keep your distance from people like that if you can, because they're always going to resent you, because they perceive you as having more or better or having a better life, and you don't want to make your life worse just to try to make them happier. So sometimes you may need to put a little distance between you and them. And that brings us to the last step. Isolate yourself as a last resort. There are some people who are just so pessimistic and so negative that no matter what you do, they are going to remain that way, and they are going to sap your energy. So as much as is possible, keep your distance from them. And dealing with negative people can feel very daunting at times. It really does sap our energy. But sometimes just talking to the person, you may find out the cause of their pessimistic attitude, and maybe you can show them a little compassion and listen to them. Maybe find out something else might be going on with them. And I've even said to people, you seem really down and rather negative. Is there something else going on in your life that's making you so unhappy right now? And sometimes you'll be surprised. They'll say, well, yeah. And I had a situation like this one time with a woman. Her husband was having really critical health issues, and she was overwhelmed with financial difficulty, the stress of being a caregiver, and was really hurting a lot. But the way it was translating in the workplace was through negativity, pessimism, and even bullying. So sometimes you can get them to talk a little bit more. But the most important step here, take care of yourself. And the way you can do that is by learning how to set and maintain boundaries. Setting boundaries is a way providing a boundary or a dividing line between you and someone else, even a loved one. It represents both physical and emotional limits that others may not violate. They can't cross your lines. So for example, if you're being bullied by somebody or someone's being really negative around you or making your life miserable because they're complaining or gossiping all the time, well, what happens is you're allowing them to cross your boundaries. And that's going to create feelings of anger and hurt and resentment from you and frustration. So basically, you need to set boundaries even with your most loved ones, so that you prevent them from letting them make you feel angry, frustrated, or miserable. Setting boundaries is not disrespectful. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, setting boundaries helps to make you feel safe in your environment and can actually prevent you from being hurt. They can be very healthy and very good for you when you set your own personal boundaries because it raises your sense of self-worth. And you are sending a message to the people around you that you are worthy of being treated with respect and kindness. Boundaries are also good for the people around you because they make other people feel safe around you. They help people to know what you want and what you don't want, and more importantly, boundaries let other people know what your limits are. It gives your loved ones the security of knowing your relationship guidelines. It gives people in the workplace the security of knowing just how far they can push you. And it eliminates fears about how people can need to behave with you. So when you set boundaries, it allows people in your life to know exactly what they can and cannot do around you. How do you do this? How do you do this? First of all, you need to identify the need to set a boundary. What is most important to you? What do you need in order to take care of yourself? Boundaries may be as simple as saying, I will not allow you to talk to me like this, or what you are doing or saying is unacceptable to me, and until you can talk to me in a respectful tone of voice, I am going to leave. It can be as simple as that. You need to pay attention to your own internal indicator of when a line is being crossed. These indicators are times when you feel intense or uncomfortable, and these emotions are causing a reaction to the person or something they have said or done to you. It's important to educate people in your life about your boundaries. Be careful not to make people feel wrong about their past behaviors. You simply calmly inform them about what they can and cannot do around you. It's important to communicate clearly. What do you refuse to tolerate? So obviously, you refuse to tolerate someone being a bully to you. You do not want to tolerate somebody who is treating you disrespectfully. You don't want to tolerate somebody who is yelling at you. My husband and I have very clear-cut boundaries. When we argue, we do not allow each other to yell at the other person. We basically say, when you can talk with me in a way that's not yelling, I'll be happy to work this out with you. So identify what your boundaries are and know when the lines are being crossed, and that when they are crossed, you will not allow people to impart those behaviors on you. So you can say to that person, do you know that you are speaking very loudly right now? Or do you know that you're hurting my feelings with the things you are saying? You can request them to stop. Please lower your voice. Or you can instruct them, I need for you not to yell. You can even warn them. You may never speak to me in that tone of voice. That is not acceptable. You may never say these types of things to me. The more clear you are with your boundaries, the better off you are going to be with that other person. Recognize that boundaries need to be flexible as well. Okay, you're going to need to flex them once in a while so that there can be room for negotiation and compromise. So basically, here are 7 tips for setting your boundaries. The tips are pretty simple, but they do take a little practice. Okay. First of all, you need to, well, let's just go back to the bottom of page 5 in your handout for a minute. Identify what boundaries you need. Know your internal indicators, and then educate the people around you about your boundaries. Now let's talk about these 7 steps for setting boundaries. These are for setting healthy boundaries with other people. First of all, identify the need for the boundary. okay? Do it clearly and preferably without anger. Use as few words as possible. Don't justify it. You don't have to explain your reason for the boundary. You don't have to apologize for it. You've got a boundary. You don't need to explain why it's there, apologize, or rationalize it to the other person. It's your right to set the boundary. Remember, you are not responsible for the other person's reactions or feelings. If you set a healthy boundary for yourself, you can't take care of that other person's feelings at the same time. You're not responsible for it. You are only responsible for communicating a boundary in a respectful manner. If they get upset with you because you're stating this boundary, that's their problem. If they decide they no longer want your friendship because you've set your boundary, then you're probably better off without them. You don't need friends around you who disrespect your boundaries, whether it's in the workplace or friendships. So be clear. Step number 3, you may feel some feelings of selfishness or guilt or even embarrassed at first. But please don't let anxiety or low self-esteem prevent you from taking care of yourself. Very, very important. Also, recognize that when you're feeling anger or resentment or frustration, it's probably an indicator that you do need to set a boundary. Number 5, you may be tested once in a while by people who are used to controlling or manipulating you. So plan on it, expect it, and remain firm. One of the things you can do is practice setting your boundaries in lower risk environments, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Plan on it. You can't establish a clear boundary successfully if you are sending mixed messages or apologizing for doing so. So once you set a boundary, you need to stick with it and recognize the fact that other people are going to test you once in a while. And number 7, okay, number 6, most people are willing to respect boundaries, but some are not. So, stand firm with it. It can be a little painful, but it's an ongoing process, and it takes a little time to learn how to set and maintain your boundaries. And the last tip that I want to share with you is to set up a support system of people who do respect your right to boundaries. Try to move away from some of the toxic people in your life, people who like to manipulate or are verbally abusive or controlling. Those are not really the people you want to spend a lot of time with. So if you have a choice, try to align yourself with people who are positive people, who are not manipulators, so that you can be safe. All right, so practice this stuff in non-risk environments with family members, on holidays, when you're out with friends who you care about and trust and respect and trust you. So 7 surefire tips for safeguarding your reputation in the workplace. Assess your situation. Okay, assess your situation. You may need to step back and take a look. You may be surprised that you are being treated unprofessionally by other people. Take a deep breath and try to understand what's happening to you. Also recognize that you're probably not alone. Don't let problems fester or get worse. Take action swiftly. If somebody's being negative or verbally abusive to you, if you let it fester, you're only going to become angrier and more frustrated, or you're going to complain to other people about it. And that does not solve anything. Address it head on. Tackle the problem while you can maintain your objectivity and some emotional distance from it. Just say to the person, this is not acceptable. If you're at work, please avoid becoming an office whiner, complaining to everybody else about the person or about the way they're treating you, because what happens if you don't go directly to the person who's giving you the difficult time and you complain about that person to other people, your coworkers might wonder why you are unable to resolve your own problems. They might wonder if their tolerance of your complaining is part of the problem. So don't allow yourself to become an office whiner or complainer, and don't sink to the level of gossip. And please don't sink to the level of the other person. Rise above that level. Don't get caught up in their dysfunctional behavior. Again, simply look at them, smile warmly, and walk away. And if they say, why are you walking away? Just say, because you are not talking to me in a way that I feel is appropriate. Protect your reputation. Again, constant complaining can earn you a negative reputation. Stay calm. Avoid the gossip train. Address people assertively and face-to-face. Don't use email ever as a tool for complaining about another person or complaining about a situation, because that email becomes a permanent record. It also can create the likelihood that you'll be misinterpreted by the reader of your email, and that may make things escalate. Be fully aware of what's going on around you. Be fully aware of your reactions to things. If you know that after you have a conversation with somebody that you end up with a knot in your stomach, or you feel icky or frustrated or angry, there's some issue going on, and you may need to set some boundaries there. And finally, this sounds a little callous and cold, but by golly, it works. Learn to laugh at their behavior. If somebody is acting totally inappropriate, yelling, pointing a finger at you, being abusive, being pessimistic, learn to laugh at their behavior, because suddenly they're going to realize they're not being effective anymore with that form of manipulation. So basically, when dealing with anybody who's difficult, try to listen to them without allowing their destructive behavior to continue. Summarize what they're telling you. Clarify questions to collect further details, and state your positive intent and tell your story from their point of view. Try to avoid damaging the relationship further by placing blame. Difficult people enjoy the reactions from other people. So if you don't allow them to get a reaction from you, if you don't take it personally, if you've taken away, you basically have taken away their enjoyment. Just walk away. Learn how to set your boundaries. Remember, you can never change the behaviors of another person. You can only change how you choose to respond to other people. And please remember that everybody is somebody's difficult person at some point.